Hi, everyone. Welcome to our final Brave Days Brave Alum Author Chat. I'm really excited. I have three of our great alumni authors with us today. We have Chrysta, Danita, and Jason. So I am going to hand it over to them for self-introductions, and then we will talk about their works. So Chrysta, why don't you start us off?
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Chrysta Bairre, and I am a This Is My Brave Denver 2016 alum. It was a great experience, and I'm super excited to stay engaged with this community.
So glad to have you here.
Hi, I'm Denita Stevens. I was in the 2018 Philadelphia show, and that was such a phenomenal experience. I've enjoyed interacting with other alumni over the past few years and excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Jason Wright. I was one of the features of that documentary that happened for This Is My Brave, and I was in the Boston 2018 show, I think, and happy to be here.
Yes, thank you so much, you guys, for being here. We were talking right before we went live, and none of them have met before. So this is the fun thing about This Is My Brave, that you have these connections across the country that you don't even always know exist. And so I love this little community of ours. So Chrysta, would you like to go ahead and tell us about your book?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to speak a little bit to my experience at This Is My Brave and how that actually led to writing my book, because I had started a business in 2015, and I had spoken at Ignite Denver and met the producer of the This Is My Brave 2016 Denver show. And she invited me to basically audition for This Is My Brave when I got to know her at the Ignite Denver. And I had a business coach at the time, and she was like, "You're a business owner now. You cannot go out in public and say that you have a mental illness." She's like, "You will lose your credibility. No one will want to do business with you. Like, you absolutely cannot do this." And there was just something inside of me. I had this little defiance that I was just like, I don't think that's right. Like, that doesn't feel right to me. And I think we need to be having these conversations, and we need to be speaking about this. And like, what if I get up on stage and start talking about mental illness and my own mental illness? And what if it doesn't hurt my credibility as a business owner? And, what if it doesn't have all this like negative impact or stigma? I mean, that's the whole point, right? Is to break the stigma. So I got up on stage at This Is My Brave Denver in 2016, and it didn't hurt my business at all. And that really led me to writing the book that I wrote. So my book, it's called Beautiful Badass: How to Believe in Yourself Against the Odds. And so much of my experience at This Is My Brave really inspired me to write the book that really was my story, and very much talked about my challenges growing up in poverty, on welfare, growing up with mental illness present, not only my own, but in my family, and how I was able to overcome some of the barriers that I faced as a child growing up, and what my success path looked like. And a huge part of what gave me permission, I mean, I gave myself permission to write this book, Beautiful Badass, but really being part of This Is My Brave gave me the courage to say, even as a business owner, even as someone who's in the public spotlight and a professional speaker and all of these things, I can start being honest about who I am and the challenges, and it's not going to hurt my credibility. And it felt especially important to me because another one of the reasons I wrote the book that I did is because I felt like so much of the time, the author, the thought leader, the speaker, the person at the front of the room who had so much wisdom to share, so much of the time I felt like, from my perspective, sitting in the audience or being the reader or the consumer of whatever that content was, I felt like that people expressed that from a place of a lot of opportunity and privilege, and like things are going really well for me. And I was like, yeah, but what about all of those people like me who've faced very significant barriers and challenges in life and who still deal with some challenges? And how do we apply that advice to ourselves? Because I don't think that gap is always being addressed. So again, that was something I really wanted to bring into my book, was to really say, okay, maybe I'm not going to stand up on stage or write in a book and say, you can be anything you want and you can do anything you want. I'm going to say you can do something. So what is that something that you can do that takes into consideration what your own limitations are, what the barriers are for you? Because when you know what those things are and you take them into consideration, you can absolutely do something amazing, create something amazing. But you have to start where you are. You have to acknowledge honestly who you are and what you can and can't do. And that's kind of the starting point for your own personal health, wellness, success, happiness, right? All of those things that I think we all want in our lives.
I love that. And I think we all, like the four of us, can all relate to that. And I'm sure our viewers can too, especially on getting up on the Brave stage and you're like, can I do that? I mean, Jason talks a lot about it in the short doc of, like how and why and if you're okay to tell your story. But I want like every business leader, everyone has struggles that they've gone through, whether it's mental illness or not. Like if people were just more real about what they've gone through, it would be so much less like divisive among us, that you're going to go through things in life and you're going to have to choose your battles, and some things are for you and some things are not. So I adore that. I adore your story, Chrysta. So thanks for sharing that part with us of your ties to Brave. So Danita, would you like to go next? Or are you frozen? She might have just gone frozen. Okay, Jason, do you want to go? And I'll bring Danita back in. Oh, you're muted. Hang on.
Absolutely. And thanks for having me today at the Brave Alumni Author Chat.
I'm so glad to have you here.
I'm super excited, and I feel like This Is My Brave was such a turning point in my life that I was able to speak my poetry on a wider stage. And to be able to do that was incredibly eye-opening, and I experienced so much growth. I experienced a pride, and I think one thing that This Is My Brave does that is amazing is that it gives us the opportunity to, one, share our story, and two, to be proud about it. And I think that those are the best parts of This Is My Brave.
I love that. I agree. I agree. And then you find this community that it's so special, like your show cast and everything, that like you're all in this together, and it's such an amazing feeling that I can't even describe. Where it's like you kind of, some of my cast members in St. Louis started like doubting their mental illness. Like, oh, my story's not like impactful enough, or my anxiety isn't as valid as someone else's like attempt or something. And it's like, no, they're all important because they all speak to different people in different ways. So sorry, Jason, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I appreciate it. I love that insight, and I feel like as Brave members, we are able to speak our story, and then afterwards people come up to you and they relate, when normally I don't know if everyone would relate to my story or someone else's story. And it's such a catharsis really to have that moment. And I feel that it's seriously been one of the best moments of my life. I had never been in a documentary before. I had never been on stage before. I'd never been able to read my poetry in front of that many people and have people enjoy it. And when I first stepped on stage there, and I don't know, I was feeling the energy of the crowd and the fact that the crowd was responsive. And I was like, wait a minute, they're laughing at me, but they're laughing at what I'm saying, and that's great. Because I was like, can you say shit and bricks on this show? I really felt like being on that show, being on that stage. My legs were tapping. You know, I had just been put on a new medication. I was like, oh my God! Like, first of all, I was looking around the audience. I'm like, that person's gonna kill me. That person hears my thoughts. That person hates my guts. That person's talking about me. And then I got on stage and all I saw was the light, and I was like, well, this is interesting. And then I just kind of read my piece, and then the second time I did it was a little bit different because I did it, but this time I was like, wait a minute, I have a little bit of a message here. So I wanted to improve the language that we use about mental health. And honestly, these illnesses, these deficit-based languages, these disorders, these conditions, these manias and bipolars, and I'm schizophrenic and you know, those are really deficit-based languages that we're learning, and we're telling people, yeah, I have a mental illness. You know what? I don't have a mental illness. What happened was I had a series of traumas that were characterized as a mental illness, and you know what? Now that I'm on a series of medications, now I have a chemical imbalance, because if I go off those medications, what do you got? You have a chemical imbalance. So I was a little bit angry at the system in general. And as a peer support specialist, I have that platform to change it. And as the editor of Oddball Magazine and stuff, I have a huge platform to affect change and bring people in to like also speak their story and everything. So it's really, if anyone on this program, I mean, if anyone listening has ever wondered what it's like to tell your story on stage or in front of people who are a captive audience, This Is My Brave is a great place, and very receptive and very inclusive, and it's a feeling you get after you walk off the stage.
Yeah, I love that, and there's so many different ways to take mental health awareness. And actually, Jason, you, and I think it was you, Oddball Magazine, made a post at the beginning of Mental Health Month that I adored about, like, on Instagram, about, you know, moving from the awareness to the action. Like, we're getting to the point where we can't just keep saying we need to raise awareness about mental health. It's there. Like, we're here in our world right now. The pandemic kind of brought all of that to a forefront. Exactly. And I think really taking action now is going to be like our next journey as an organization, as a community, as a whole, as a mental health advocacy. You know, and the whole arena of it will be action-based. Because the conversations are there, but we got to start making change now.
And one of the things that I believe wholeheartedly is to understand that the reason why we have Mental Health Awareness Month and Mental Health Action Day is because a series of ex-patients and psychiatric survivors fought for their lives to say, look, we have a voice. The ADA is an important thing, but the psychiatric survivors movement and the ex-patients, you know, we all together, we have to, you know, under the ADA and all the different movements that happened in the 60s and 70s, because we had all this advocacy, is the reason why we celebrate Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's not because we're aware of our feelings and our traumas. Yeah, those are valid, but it's about people who are put in psychiatric hospitalizations, forced hospitalizations, wellness checks. There's so much stuff, community respites and things like that are, really, it's about talking about your mental health, but it's also about what is this system and why does one person get to characterize my I was out of balance, but why do I have to all of a sudden be the patient and you're prescribing the medications? And that's kind of what that poem is about. But honestly, there is a huge disparity between the patient and the provider. And I honestly think that that's like something that we need to address. So that's why I made that statement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really liked that. And because that's like also the next level of awareness that people not going through mental health struggles themselves don't know. The
Right.
medication journey, the therapy journey, the interviewing your therapist. And I mean, I always like, I literally will say like, I fired my therapist today, or like I put it in these terms that might sound aggressive or something, but it makes sense to people outside of, but then it also creates questions like, what do you mean? Well, not every therapist is a fit for me, or I outgrew this one, or there was something that wasn't lining up anymore and we weren't on the same page. And it's this delicate balance of wanting to make sure that, you're with someone that is pushing you, but also not pushing you away too far. We all know the balance of like how you find your therapist, but there's just so many important things. And Danita, now that you're back, I'm sorry that we lost connection for a minute. Can you tell us about Invisible Veils? And again, I love the poet that you and Jason are both poetry. And I think Chrysta's story is working so well into all of this as well. So yeah, can you tell us about Invisible Veils?
Yes, I can. I would like to kind of touch on something that Chrysta was talking about. She was talking about like this is bad for your business to talk about this.
Yes.
And that's something that I had experienced early on in my 20s when I was a college student. Like, don't talk about your mental health because you're gonna get people who are gonna judge you. I had a professor literally tell me that, and I was like, but I want to share. I want to talk about it, and I ended up sharing my story, but anonymously, and that really shaped my ability to speak for a long time, because I was like, oh, well, people are going to judge me and think differently about me. And that was such a huge burden to carry. But I continue to write, and that was such a great outlet. Part of my book, Invisible Veils, is it started in college. I didn't have the language to express what I was experiencing. Like I didn't know how to talk about it. At that time, I hadn't found a therapist who was able to really help me work through stuff. And I just was really struggling. And poetry was a way for me to let it out. And in a way that I didn't have professors telling me, oh, you shouldn't share this with your name attached to it. It was something that was artistic and creative, and it was a bit veiled to some degree. I could express myself in imagery, and so it made me comfortable being more open and sharing my story, or parts of my story, or just experiences, and that is just something that I can't even express how important it is to be able to have an outlet. Those things stay inside us. If we're not speaking about it, then they're just festering inside of us. And it is so therapeutic, even just to talk about it and to share our experiences with other people. So whenever the opportunity to audition for This Is My Brave, I was a little bit nervous. It's a little intimidating getting on that stage with so many people, especially if you haven't done that before, like I hadn't. But I was ready. I wanted to do my part, and just letting letting even just one person know that, you know, that we all struggle with things. We all struggle with things that we think that we're just alone in. And to be able to share that with others is huge. I got chill bumps even just talking about it, because it was so healing to be up there and to be able to talk and not carry that shame or that stigma with me anymore. And afterwards, like Jason said, I had women coming up to me and they were like, "Oh, thank you for sharing your story. You're so brave." And I didn't really feel brave. I felt like I needed to do it, but it made them feel comfortable in telling their story and sharing with me. And you could tell that it really helped make them feel connected, just like I did. And that was just an amazing experience, which is what led me to really seeking out a publisher for my poetry book, because I wanted to reach more people. And so that's how that even came about. I had the confidence that came from doing This Is My Brave, that I had a voice and I had something to say, and it was worth saying. It wasn't just something that I should keep in a therapy session or with a close friend. I should I should speak up and tell others, so that, you know, just to start putting a drop in the ripple of creating more, not just awareness, but more connection with others, because that is part of trauma or depression or any other mental health issue, is that we feel disconnected. And the more things that we can do to connect with others is better. I mean, even if it's just one small thing. And I'm sure that y'all have had the same experience, but I've had people reach out to me after reading my book and just be like, "Oh, that really spoke to me." Just that, I mean, even just one poem, like, "Oh, I didn't know how to put that into words, but you really you captured it. And it's amazing to know that, you know, I'm not the only one." And so that's been an unexpected thing happen after publishing. So that's about it about my book.
That's perfect. And again, it's that you guys are 3 different stories in 3 different places in the country, and you can still connect. You can still see value in each other's work, and you still, I mean, everyone's mentioning the therapeutic benefits of writing, which is what, like, with us doing this Brave Days campaign this month, everything that we've been doing has been about finding some kind of outlet. Like, we've had art workshops and poetry workshops and these author chats, and yoga. So all of these things that we all do and these skills that come to the table, and even if they're not, like, I'm not an artist, but I love sitting in our Thursday art workshops because it's just a different way of thinking about things. Like, shows you different venues for our thoughts and our healing and everything that we've all gone through in these journeys, even though they're different and we're different people in different areas, but we all have this common thread. And, you know, we've wanted to put these things out so that people, whether they're ever going to be on a Brave stage or not, can experience a little bit of what we experience, whether they tell their story publicly or not one day. I always say that, like, your Brave stage is whatever you make it. It can be your mom's kitchen table, or it can be your best friend's couch, or like, everyone can have a Brave stage. It's whatever is your fit. So, yeah, I love these conversations, and I love being able to hear about the amazing authors that we have in our alumni group. Like, I want to buy all of these books now of all of the people I've talked to. And it's so fun to be able to highlight this part of your lives, and also, of course, to see how Brave has impacted that. It's fun to hear.
Do you mind if I mention my new book as well?
Go for it.
So we just released, Oddball Publishing just released Train of Thought 2, which is a continuation of Train of Thought. the first one, notice this one's shiny and white and black, and this one is matte and black and white. So it's like they're two.
I like that.
So this book I'm really proud of, and my team did an excellent job putting it together. It's beautiful, it's well done, and really looking forward to promoting it in the next few months. And I'm just really excited about it. It's a great book. It talks about all the trials and tribulations I went through on the trains of Boston, going through the MBTA system, and the anxiety that was provoked, and the kind of everything was fine until my headphones broke, and then it was just like hundreds of people on the train. It's a hot day. I'm wearing a big jacket. It's just like, this is miserable. And I was commuting to a job that didn't respect me or didn't know that I had any talents, and that I could. And one thing, I couldn't tell them that I had bipolar disorder, which honestly, I have schizoaffective disorder, which honestly, I don't believe in diagnoses anymore. But honestly, when I said that, I talked to my supervisor. I said, I have bipolar disorder, and don't tell anyone. And honestly, now I'm like, I have schizoaffective disorder, although I don't really believe it. I believe I was characterized schizoaffective for whatever reason, for misbalances that I had, and if anything, the medications messed me up more than the actual, it's what happened, the chicken or the egg, right? So I always think about that. So this book, Train of Thought 2, talks a lot about kind of just coping, because these are the things I actually, and struggling, because I did struggle, but I've learned to live with everything that I live with. But honestly, at that time in my life, I was hurting. I was hurting that. And this book really talks about it. So, I'm really proud of it. It's Train of Thought 2, Almost Home. The current book, Train of Thought, is available on my bookstore. Not just my bookstore. Well, on the bookstore, there's also other amazing independent authors. So check out the Oddball Bookstore as well. When
is Train of Thought 2 being released?
It's very exciting. June 1. June 1. Yay! Yes, yeah.
Next week.
June 1. Next
okay,
week,
cool.
And I'm very excited about it. So you can check out. It will be on the bookstore on June 1. Which very excited. So
awesome.
Very much looking forward to it, and very proud of this one.
Good. I love that. I can't wait to get your books, all of you. And yes, I will be ordering Train of Thought 2, 1 and 2, because I have not read either of them. But yeah, June 1st, I'm definitely going to get that.
Yeah, I'm wicked excited about it. And there's a lot of buzz around this book right now. So it's awesome.
Awesome. And I think it's great timing for things like this. Again, just with the year that we've had and the year we're still having. And, there's ups and downs, and finding something that you can read or watch that makes you feel a little less alone is exactly what we all need right now. So I want to thank you guys. I know Jason has a meeting to get to, so I don't want to keep you guys any longer. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to say? Or I will be putting this on YouTube, and I'll send you guys the link afterwards, but all of your stuff will be in the video description, so people can watch this chat and then go to your websites and learn more about you. But does anyone else have anything? Yeah, Chrysta.
I wanted to speak to you. I was really touched by what Danita was talking about, in your early 20s and when you started to write poetry, and just the power in any kind of creative self-expression. And you spoke to this as well about, the art days and different things. It doesn't have to be writing, even if you feel like you're not a writer. But that creative self-expression of the experiences that we have dealing with mental illness, or any experience that we have, I really feel is so powerful. And I want to encourage anyone who might be watching, even if you think, I'm not a writer, I'm not an artist, whatever that is. Before I wrote my book, I was working with someone, and it was a mentor of mine, and he reminded me that I am a writer and have always been a writer. And he, in fact, reminded me of stories that I told him. For example, like when I was 8 years old, I wrote a story and won a story contest, and I included the story in my book, Beautiful Badass.
Love that.
I wrote a story when I was 8 years old about a car that was allergic to gas, a yellow Volkswagen Bug that was allergic to fuel. And this made him so depressed that he actually was suicidal. I wrote the story when I was 8 years old, and it tells like his journey of like several failed suicide attempts and how he ultimately found hope through a stranger who gave him a solar panel box so that he didn't have to run on gas at all. And so, you know, it took someone else reminding me that like I am actually a writer, and I have been writing all my life. And I, in addition to this short story that I wrote when I was 8 years old about the car who's allergic to gas, you know, I wrote other short stories and I wrote poetry. And, you know, this connection to ourselves and that creative self-expression, I feel like is so powerful. And I just want to speak to anyone out there, if you're thinking, but I'm not an artist, but I'm not a writer. If you have an opportunity to tell your story, even on a stage, but I'm not a speaker, you are. You know, there is, no matter where you're at, no matter how qualified you think you are or how, you know, talented you think you are, you know, you are more talented than you know. You are more valuable than you know. And there is absolutely someone out there that wants to hear your story, that needs to hear your story, whatever that looks like for you. And if you have any form of imposter syndrome holding you back, like I have over and over again throughout my life and career and business, I invite you just to take that next step forward anyway, even if you're not sure, because like everyone has said here today, you get off of that brave stage, you publish your book, you publish your poetry, whatever that is, and there's someone's life you are going to touch, and probably a lot of people's lives are going to touch, even if you never hear from that person. And in many cases, you actually will get that affirmation back, and it's a really powerful experience for everyone involved.
Oh, you just gave me chills. That was a perfect way to wrap this up. So thank you so much. Yeah, so great. So Danita, Jason, and Chrysta, thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us today. So appreciate you guys. And of course, let's stay in touch and keep this momentum going as we move forward.
Thank you.
All right. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.